It was a crisp Saturday morning at the town square. The local military band had been granted permission to rehearse for the upcoming Armed Forces Day parade, and the air pulsed with the sound of brass instruments, steady percussion, and the occasional trill of a flute. Families gathered nearby, sipping coffee and enjoying the unexpected preview. But not everyone was pleased. From the far end of the street came the unmistakable clack of wedge heels. The sound grew louder, sharper, and then came the voice, piercing through the music like a whistle. "Excuse me! Excuse me, what do you think you're doing disturbing the peace of this neighborhood?" Heads turned. Mothers pulled their children closer. The tuba player's cheeks deflated mid-note. Even the drummers, who usually kept rhythm through chaos, began to slow. Karen had arrived. She was notorious in town for filing complaints about anything and everything. Kids, riding bikes too loudly, dogs barking past 7 p.m., even the smell of barbecue smoke drifting over her fence. Today, apparently, her fury was directed at the United States Army Band. One young trumpet player whispered, "Is she seriously yelling at us?" Karen stormed right up to the front of the formation, wagging a finger like a conductor herself. "This is a residential zone. You can't just blare trumpets and bang drums like you own the place. I'll have you know I've already called the city council and the HOA. The band sergeant, a broad-shouldered man who'd seen deployments overseas, cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we've got a permit. We're rehearsing for the national parade." Karen scoffed so loudly it echoed. "A permit? That doesn't give you the right to rattle my windows at 10 a.m. My cat is terrified. My plants are shaking off the shelves. Do you hear me? This is harassment!" The audience shifted awkwardly, unsure if they should intervene or let the sergeant handle it. Some were even suppressing laughs. Then something strange happened. As Karen continued her rant, the band members began glancing toward the back of the formation. The clarinet section froze mid-breath. The percussionists stopped tapping. Even the cymbals that had been poised for a crash remained suspended in silence. Because at the far end, walking slowly toward the front, was a figure no one expected to see. His posture was tall, his eyes sharp, and his presence commanding. The murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Wait, is that—" "No way, it can't be him." Karen hadn't noticed yet. She was too busy berating the sergeant. But the soldiers knew, the musicians knew, and when the man finally stepped into the light, the band sergeant snapped to attention. "Conductor returns," someone whispered in awe. The square, which had moments ago echoed with brass and percussion, was now silent except for Karen's shrill voice. She was still going on about noise ordinances and council meetings, completely unaware that the world around her had shifted. The figure stepped closer, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement. His hair was streaked with silver, and under his arm he carried something wrapped in black cloth. His mere presence seemed to command gravity. The band sergeant saluted. "Sir." Gasps moved through the crowd. A child whispered to his father, "Who is he?" The father, eyes wide, replied softly, "That's Colonel Matthews. He used to conduct this very band before he retired. Legend says he could lead an entire regiment with a single wave of his baton." The wrapped cloth was peeled back, and sure enough, a baton gleamed in his hand like a ceremonial sword. The musicians stiffened. Some gripped their instruments tighter. Others simply stared. For them, this was not just a man. It was their conductor, the one who had pushed them through grueling rehearsals, lifted them to glory at international events, and demanded perfection with every raised brow. He had been gone for years. No one thought they'd see him again. Karen finally noticed the silence. She spun around, hand on her hip. "And who exactly are you supposed to be? Another one of these noisemakers?" The colonel raised his eyes, calm but unyielding. "Ma'am, I am the noise." The crowd chuckled, and Karen's face flushed crimson. "Noise? Ha! You think you're clever, don't you? Well, cleverness won't save you when I file a formal complaint. What gives you the right to disrupt a peaceful morning?" The colonel stepped forward, baton in hand. He looked at the band, then at the sergeant. "Musicians," he said, his voice steady but commanding. "At ease." It was like a switch flipped. Shoulders loosened, instruments lowered. but all eyes remained fixed on him. The respect was palpable. Karen jabbed a finger toward him. "Don't you ignore me! I live 3 blocks down. My house has rights." The colonel didn't flinch. Instead, he lifted the baton slightly, almost like a salute. "Ma'am, this isn't just music. This is discipline. This is history. Every note we play is a tribute to those who served before us. It is not noise, it is tradition." The words hung heavy in the air. Even the children stopped fidgeting. Karen, however, scoffed. "Tradition? Ha! Well, let me tell you. Your so-called tradition is trespassing on my peace and quiet. I demand this. This racket stop immediately." The colonel's eyes sharpened. He raised his baton high. The band instinctively straightened. "Very well," he said. "Let us show her what tradition sounds like." The downbeat was coming, and the entire town braced for it. The baton sliced downward through the air. In an instant, the band erupted, not with a chaotic blast, but with perfect, disciplined harmony. Trumpets blazed like sunlight on steel. Trombones rolled like thunder, and the percussion struck with the precision of marching boots on parade. The melody rose tall and proud, carrying the unmistakable power of a national march. The entire square vibrated with the sound. Windows rattled. Flags along the street fluttered from the vibrations, and children clapped their hands to the beat. Karen staggered back, wide-eyed, clutching her purse. "What is this?" she sputtered. But the colonel didn't answer. He was in his element now. His baton moved like lightning, each flick directing a section, each pause demanding silence that fell sharper than any word. He conducted not just with his hands, but with his entire presence, shoulders commanding, eyes sharp, body leading the music like a general leading his troops. The musicians, once stiff and nervous, now played with a kind of reverence. Some had tears in their eyes. For them, this wasn't a rehearsal anymore. This was history breathing again. Karen tried shouting over the music, but her words vanished into the brass. She waved her arms furiously, as if she could physically stop the sound from reaching her ears. "Stop it! Stop this nonsense!" she screeched. No one listened. The townspeople were entranced. Many stood tall, hands over hearts. Veterans in the crowd saluted, their eyes misty. Even the mayor, who had quietly appeared near the back, took off his hat in respect. The music swelled to its climax. Cymbals crashed like cannons. The final note rang through the air like the echo of a battlefield salute. Then silence. Not an ordinary silence, the kind of silence that follows something greater than words. The colonel lowered his baton slowly, as if lowering a flag. The band held still, eyes locked on him, waiting. The crowd erupted in applause. Whistles, cheers, shouts of "Bravo!" filled the square. Children jumped up and down, and even the toughest-looking veterans clapped until their palms turned red. Karen's jaw hung open. She looked around in disbelief. "Are you all insane?" Applauding this. "This racket!" The colonel finally turned to her. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of command. "Noise fades, ma'am. Music remains." The words struck harder than the instruments. The band sergeant stepped forward. "Colonel Matthews, sir, does this mean you're back?" The colonel glanced at the musicians, then at the people of the town who had gathered, and finally at the baton still in his hand. He smiled faintly. "It seems the band never truly played without me." The crowd roared in approval. Karen, however, was not finished. She narrowed her eyes, clenched her fists, and hissed, "You haven't heard the last of me." And with that, she stormed off, her heels clicking furiously against the pavement. But everyone knew the real show was just beginning. Karen didn't go home quietly. The very next morning, she reappeared at the square, clipboard in hand, lips pursed tighter than a snare drum. The band had gathered again for rehearsal, and this time the colonel stood proudly at the podium, baton resting in his hand. Karen marched right into the center of the square. "I have official documents. Noise violations. City ordinances. You can't just hijack this town with your military parade nonsense." The colonel didn't flinch. The musicians didn't move. The townspeople, who had gathered once again, exchanged amused glances. The mayor stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. Mrs. Karen, with all due respect, the band is operating under full permission of the city. Their rehearsals are not a violation, but an honor for this community. Karen gasped, scandalized. Honor? Honor? My poor cat has been under the bed for 24 hours straight. I'll have you all fined. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd, but the colonel raised his baton gently, silencing them. He fixed Karen with a level gaze. Ma'am, he said evenly, do you know what this band represents? Karen folded her arms. Annoyance, disruption, and headaches? The colonel shook his head. Discipline? Sacrifice? Unity? Every note carries the memory of those who gave their lives so you could stand here freely and complain. We don't play for noise, we play for them. The silence that followed was heavy. Even Karen hesitated, her mouth opening but no words coming out. For the first time, doubt flickered across her face. Then, as if on cue, the band struck up a soft, slow hymn. The music floated gently, solemnly, wrapping the square in reverence. Veterans in the crowd stood straighter. Some wiped tears. Karen stood frozen, her protests caught in her throat. The sound wasn't loud. It wasn't disruptive. It was beautiful. The hymn ended, and the colonel lowered his baton once more. He turned to Karen. If, after hearing this, you still believe it's nothing but noise, then perhaps the silence you seek is best found behind closed doors. The crowd burst into applause again, louder than before. Cheers echoed off the buildings. Children waved little flags, and the mayor proudly shook the colonel's hand. Karen's face turned crimson. With a sharp huff, she spun on her heel and stormed away once more, muttering under her breath. This time, however, no one followed her. No one cared. The colonel looked at his musicians. Shall we begin again? The band sergeant grinned. Sir, we never stopped. The baton lifted. The music rose. And for the town, the legend of the conductor's return had truly begun. Enjoying this wild Karen versus military band showdown? Smash that subscribe button for more jaw-dropping HOA drama and unexpected twists. If this story had you hooked, give it a like and drop a comment below. What would you have done if you were standing in that square?